Hello and welcome to my latest weekly video news from Madison's. Well, an interesting piece of news caught my eye this week. Did you know there's been a 45% increase in second homes bought in Pembrokeshire in Wales? That means people who want to either use them for their own use as a second home or as a holiday home and rental to others. And a petition has been started. It's got just under 6,000 signatures at the moment from the locals saying how that is of such detriment to the cultural heritage, language, etc. of Wales, and how they want this to stop. There's evidently an act, the Future Generations Welfare Act, which means that, by law, you can petition to slow down purchase. Of course, you see that in some ski resorts, don't you? Especially in Switzerland, where they really limit the number of outsiders and you have to show that you're a resident to the area before you can actually buy, to try and maintain that cultural heritage of an area. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens to Wales as a result of the pandemic. It has boomed, definitely, and of course, price is still relatively cheap compared to what we see over here in the southeast. So quite an interesting story. And lots of other little snippet of news stories that caught my attention this week. So inflation, 4.2% now. Interest rates will absolutely have to start to come up to try and control that. That is getting at quite a high level that the Bank of England will be very keen to maintain. Buy-to-let landlords, the biggest area that sort of saw a boom in purchases from buy-to-let landlords because of a stamp duty holiday was actually London. 52% more purchases than in the previous, looking back at the previous 12 months prior to the pandemic. So not in pandemic times, but in what we would class as normal times. And that's probably because rents are at a phenomenal high. They are at their highest rate now that has ever been seen in those areas. And the rate of growth they're seeing is at a highest rate for 13 years. So unsurprising that buy-to-let landlords wanted to save themselves $15,000 potentially on the stamp duty and get some great deals, especially when prices were looking quite depressed in those larger cities and knowing that that rental market would probably return. And a really interesting feature from a developer who was talking about how to make the best money from developments, and he thinks that ugly office buildings are the way to go. And of course, office buildings often have permitted development to be turned into residential flats, and they can be quite ugly but have really quite nice space inside. I'd just beware of that. There are so many developments that go on in that space that you're competing against an awful lot of other stock, as we see, and there are some phenomenal developers of flats. We, for example, representing Kentish Projects Women at the Retreat, which is a fabulous development. So yeah, just be careful. Those ugly buildings have got to contend with some very, very beautiful buildings, certainly here in parts of Tunbridge Wells. Final story that caught my attention was how first-time buyers, 3/4 of them have contemplated purchasing at an auction, but extreme caution offered, since it's felt that many of them might actually struggle to get their mortgage finance, actually. Lenders obviously nervous about those high loan-to-value loans, so they often do anything that's slightly unusual in that scenario. So do beware, first-time buyers, if you are thinking of buying at auction. It can look like a deal and a bargain, but you really have to know what you're buying and whether you can definitely finance it. So yeah, just a roundup of some general headline stories there that caught my attention this week. Well, great to see the ice skating rink back open down at the Calverley grounds. Always such a fabulous treat. Do please go down there. It's a really, really great resort. Of course, has struggled massively last year. They set it all up, thought it was going to open, of course it didn't. So lovely to see it open this year. It's got a great cafe and a great atmosphere around there, so do check that out. And finally, a lovely property that I've taken to market, Montacute Cottage. It's on the front road. It's a beautiful little period lodge house, single-storey living, 3 or 4 bedrooms, lovely open plan kitchen, dining and a great garden, garage and off-road parking at a competitive price for a detached property, because we know it's next to the road. But if you don't mind that, you're going to get a great deal. So if that's of interest, give us a call. I hope you have a lovely week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.